What happens when one of Hollywood's toughest action stars stands his ground against the increasingly hostile behavior of late-night television's most controversial host? The entertainment world was left in shock after Bruce Willis was unceremoniously kicked off the Jimmy Kimmel Live show, following what began as a typical celebrity interview, but rapidly escalated into one of the most heated on-air confrontations in recent television history. The fallout has been nothing short of explosive, with industry insiders speaking out about the troubling behind-the-scenes reality of the late-night talk show. Before we dive into the full details of this shocking incident, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, so you never miss out on the real Hollywood stories the mainstream media won't tell you. Drop a comment below with your thoughts as you watch this unfold. The evening started like any other taping of Jimmy Kimmel Live. The studio audience buzzed with excitement, knowing they were about to see Bruce Willis, who was there to promote his latest film project. The production staff seemed on edge, though few would understand why until later. Bruce arrived at the studio with his signature tough guy swagger, tossing quick waves to fans outside and signing a few autographs, completely unaware of the storm about to unfold. According to sources close to the production, Kimmel had been in a particularly foul mood all day, berating staff members and making unreasonable demands. "He's always been difficult," said one production assistant, who wished to remain anonymous. "But lately, it's been getting worse. The person you see on camera is not who he is when the cameras stop rolling." When Bruce was finally introduced and walked onto the stage, the audience erupted in loud applause. He flashed a smirking, half-cocked grin, giving Kimmel a quick handshake before dropping into his seat. The initial pleasantries seemed normal enough, with Kimmel asking about Bruce's new film and his experience working with the director. Bruce, ever the cool professional, answered with sharp sarcasm and the gritty charm that defined John McClane, keeping the crowd entertained. The first sign of trouble came when Kimmel abruptly changed topics, bringing up Bruce's personal life in a way that clearly caught the actor off guard. "So Bruce, we've all heard about your off-screen adventures," Kimmel said, with an unsettling smirk. "Got any wild stories from your die-hard days to share with our audience?" The camera caught Bruce's eyes narrowing, his jaw tightening slightly. He leaned forward, his expression cool but intense, clearly unimpressed with the shift. "Jimmy, you know I'm here to talk about the new movie," he said, his voice low and clipped, with that familiar McClane edge. "Let's keep it on the script, all right?" Rather than respecting his guest's boundaries, Kimmel pressed harder. "Come on, Bruce, the fans want the real stuff. You can't just waltz onto my show and call the shots like some action hero." The audience's laughter grew noticeably strained as the tension on stage became palpable. Bruce leaned back, his smirk fading into a steely stare, but his composure held firm. "Actually, Jimmy, that's exactly how this works. We set the ground rules before I showed up, and my personal life's not part of the deal." What viewers at home didn't know was that Bruce's team had indeed negotiated clear parameters for the interview, which Kimmel was now deliberately violating. A member of Bruce's publicity team later revealed they had extensive discussions with the show's producers about respecting certain boundaries, particularly regarding his private life and family matters. Kimmel's response was to double down, his tone growing increasingly condescending. "That's not how my show works, Bruce. My audience expects real, unfiltered conversations, not some rehearsed action movie script." The tension in the studio was undeniable now. The audience fell uncomfortably quiet, sensing the growing hostility between the two men. Bruce took a slow breath, his piercing gaze locked on Kimmel as he tried to steer the interview back on track. "Look, Jimmy, I respect your gig, but this feels like a cheap stunt. We've got plenty to talk about: the film, my career, maybe even the stunts I've been pulling since the 80s. My private life's off limits, and you signed off on that." Kimmel's face visibly hardened. Those who have worked closely with the host recognized what was coming. The infamous temper that had allegedly reduced staff members to tears on numerous occasions, was about to surface publicly. "Don't tell me how to run my show, Bruce," Kimmel snapped, his friendly television persona completely evaporating. "You Hollywood types are all the same, thinking you can control everything. This is my show, my rules." The studio fell completely silent. Bruce, unfazed by the outburst, kept his cool, his rugged features steady. "I'm not trying to control your show, Jimmy," he said, his voice calm but laced with biting sarcasm. "I'm just asking for the basic respect of sticking to what we agreed on before I walked out here." During the next commercial break, witnesses reported seeing heated exchanges between Bruce's team and the show's producers. Bruce himself remained seated, arms crossed, staring straight ahead with a look that could have been ripped from a Die Hard scene, deliberately avoiding eye contact with Kimmel, who huddled with his writers at the edge of the stage. When the camera started rolling again, the tension had clearly escalated rather than dissipated. Kimmel returned with a passive-aggressive apology that sounded anything but sincere. "Sorry if I hit a nerve there, Bruce. Guess some topics are too tough for an action star." It was at this point that Bruce decided he'd had enough. Dropping his usual laid-back cool, he leaned forward, fixing Kimmel with a hard stare. "You know what, Jimmy? I've been outrunning explosions and bad guys for 30 years. I know a setup when I see one, and I'm not here to be your punching bag for ratings." The audience gasped. No one had expected Bruce Willis, known for his tough guy charisma and sharp wit, to call out Kimmel so directly. But those close to the actor weren't surprised. "Bruce is a straight shooter with a big heart," said a longtime colleague. "But he doesn't take nonsense, not from anybody, not even a guy like Kimmel." Kimmel's face flushed with anger. The camera caught his knuckles whitening as he gripped his desk. "Are you suggesting I'm setting you up for ratings?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "I'm not suggesting it," Bruce shot back, his tone sharp and dripping with sarcasm. "I'm saying it straight, and your reaction tells me I'm right on target." What happened next sent shockwaves through the studio audience and would soon break the internet. Kimmel, clearly unused to being challenged on his own show, completely lost his composure. The mask of the charming, affable host slipped entirely, revealing the rumored temperament that industry insiders had whispered about for years. "Cut to commercial," Kimmel barked at his production team. But the show's director, caught off guard by the sudden command, hesitated just long enough that the cameras captured what happened next. Kimmel leaned forward, jabbing his finger toward Bruce. "You think you can come on my show and talk to me like that?" he hissed, his voice low but intense enough that the nearby microphones picked it up clearly. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Bruce, unfazed, leaned back with a sly McClane-style smirk, his eyes steady. "Yeah, Jimmy, I know who you are. Question is, do you? Because this isn't how you treat a guest, especially when you invited here." The audience sat in stunned silence as the exchange continued. Several people began recording on their phones, sensing they were witnessing something extraordinary. These videos would later circulate widely, providing irrefutable evidence of what transpired. "You're done here," Kimmel said, his face contorted with anger. "Get off my stage." Bruce raised an eyebrow, a faint, incredulous grin crossing his face, like he was sizing up a villain in one of his films. "You're really kicking me out because I wouldn't let you rewrite the deal we made?" "Security," Kimmel called out, signaling to the large men positioned at the edges of the studio. "Please escort Mr. Willis off the premises." The audience erupted in a mixture of gasps, boos, and confused murmurs. Several people stood up in protest, while others began shouting at Kimmel. Bruce, ever the cool-headed star, raised his hands in a calming gesture toward the approaching security personnel. "No need for the muscle, boys," he said, his voice steady with a sarcastic bite. "I've handled tougher exits than this." He turned to the audience, flashing that iconic lopsided grin that contrasted sharply with Kimmel's obvious fury. "Sorry you all had to see this. Not exactly the action scene we signed up for tonight." As Bruce stood to leave, one brave audience member called out, "We're with you, Bruce." This triggered a wave of supportive applause that clearly infuriated Kimmel further. Bruce walked off stage with the confidence of a seasoned action hero, nodding curtly to the security guards, who now seemed uncomfortable with their assignment. As he disappeared backstage, the audience's applause continued, morphing into something that sounded distinctly like a protest against the host's behavior. Once Bruce was gone, Kimmel, visibly shaken but attempting to regain control of his show, tried to play the incident off as a joke. "Well, that was interesting," he said, with a forced laugh that fooled no one. "Some people just can't take a little ribbing, am I right?" The audience's silence was deafening. The cameras caught several people getting up and walking out of the studio in disgust. According to witnesses backstage, Bruce's team was already on their phones, dealing with the fallout. Bruce himself appeared remarkably composed. "I've been through worse scraps than this," he reportedly told his publicist with a dry chuckle. "But there's a line, and he crossed it on purpose. I'm not here to play the fall guy for his ratings." Meanwhile, Kimmel's producers were in crisis mode. The show still had another segment to film, but the atmosphere in the studio had turned hostile. Audience members were openly discussing what they'd witnessed, with many expressing shock at Kimmel's behavior. "It was like watching someone transform before your eyes," one audience member later told entertainment reporters. "One minute he was the Jimmy we know from TV, and the next, he was this aggressive, mean-spirited person. I've watched his show for years, but I'll never see him the same way again." The show's producers attempted to salvage the situation, offering the audience free merchandise and trying to hype up the next guest, but the damage was done. The remaining segments of the show were filmed in an atmosphere best described as frigid, with Kimmel's jokes falling flat and audience reactions feeling forced and uncomfortable. As Bruce left the studio, fans and paparazzi, who had gathered outside, noticed his early exit and began asking questions. Always known for his tough guy charm and connection with fans, Bruce stopped briefly. "Sometimes you walk into a fight you didn't plan for," he said, with a sarcastic nod to his action hero roots. "That's all I've got for now." But the story was just beginning. By the time Bruce reached his car, clips of the confrontation were already circulating widely. The studio audience, armed with their phones and outraged by what they had witnessed, ensured that Kimmel's behavior would not be hidden or edited out of the official broadcast. The incident quickly became the top entertainment story across all major news outlets. Former guests on Kimmel's show began speaking out, sharing their own uncomfortable experiences. "What happened with Bruce isn't isolated," revealed one actress, who requested anonymity. "Jimmy can be incredibly cruel when he doesn't get his way. The difference is that Bruce had the guts and stature to push back. Many of us just endured it, because we felt we had no choice." A former writer for the show corroborated these accounts. "There's a reason the turnover rate for staff is so high," they explained. "What you saw happen with Bruce is the Jimmy we deal with daily. The nice guy act is exactly that, an act." The network executives went into damage control mode, releasing a carefully worded statement that acknowledged the unfortunate incident without placing blame on either party. "We value all our guests and strive to provide a platform for meaningful and entertaining conversations," the statement read. "We regret that tonight's episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live did not meet those standards." Bruce's team, meanwhile, maintained a dignified silence, refusing to engage in a public back and forth. This strategic restraint only enhanced Bruce's image, with public opinion overwhelmingly in his favor. Industry analysts began speculating about the potential long-term damage to Kimmel's career. "This kind of public meltdown can be career-ending," noted one veteran entertainment reporter. "Especially in today's climate, where authenticity is valued and bad behavior is no longer swept under the rug." Behind the scenes, sources revealed that Kimmel was furious about the backlash, blaming everyone but himself for the debacle. He reportedly demanded that his team find a way to spin the narrative in his favor, and was enraged when they explained that the unedited footage made this virtually impossible. The morning after the explosive confrontation, the story had evolved from entertainment news to a broader conversation about power dynamics in Hollywood and the treatment of guests on talk shows. Media analysts called it a watershed moment, with many predicting it would force a re-evaluation of the talk show format itself. When the heavily edited official broadcast aired, viewers were quick to notice the obvious cuts around the confrontation. The show attempted to present a sanitized version of events, showing Bruce leaving during a commercial break, with Kimmel offering a vague explanation about a scheduling misunderstanding. This attempt at damage control backfired spectacularly when compared with the raw footage that had already been widely shared. "They're trying to rewrite what we all saw," commented one viewer in a statement that captured the sentiment of many. Several prominent advertisers, concerned about being associated with such controversy, quietly began pulling their sponsorships, pending further investigation into the incident. Bruce's first public appearance after the confrontation came 3 days later, at a charity event he had long been scheduled to attend. Reporters swarmed him, all asking the same questions about the Kimmel incident. Bruce, characteristically tough yet charismatic, offered a measured response. "Look, everybody's got a bad day," he said, with a sarcastic glint that echoed his on-screen persona. "But when you invite a guy to your show, you don't try to sucker punch him. I just stood my ground, that's all." When asked if he had heard from Kimmel since the incident, Bruce's smirk said it all. "Nope," he replied simply, his tone sharp and dry. "But that's fine. Sometimes silence says it all." Kimmel, meanwhile, was conspicuously absent from his show for the remainder of the week, with the network citing a previously unannounced vacation. Industry insiders revealed that this was no vacation, but rather a mandatory cooling-off period imposed by network executives who were furious about the situation. "They basically told him to lay low until they figured out how to handle this," revealed a source close to the production. "The damage control meetings have been non-stop. There's genuine concern that this could be the beginning of the end for the show." The enforced break did little to improve Kimmel's demeanor. According to those who interacted with him during this period, he remained defiant, convinced that he had done nothing wrong, and that the public would eventually side with him. This disconnect from reality only served to further concern network executives. When Kimmel finally returned to the air the following week, viewers were treated to a carefully scripted apology that many found hollow and performative. "I want to address what happened last week with Bruce Willis," he began, his tone noticeably subdued. "Things got heated, and I reacted poorly. For that, I apologize to Bruce and to our viewers. The apology might have been more effective had it not been immediately followed by a series of jokes that seemed to minimize the incident and subtly shift blame onto Bruce for being too sensitive. The backlash was swift, with viewers once again expressing criticism of Kimmel's apparent inability to take genuine responsibility for his actions. Bruce, for his part, maintained a dignified silence regarding the apology, neither accepting nor rejecting it publicly. This restraint only enhanced his reputation further, with many commentators praising his grit and professionalism in the face of continued provocation. The long-term consequences for Kimmel became increasingly apparent in the weeks that followed. Ratings for his show plummeted, with many former viewers making good on their promises to boycott the program. Several A-list celebrities quietly canceled their scheduled appearances, not wanting to be associated with the controversy or subjected to similar treatment. Behind the scenes, the working environment at the show reportedly deteriorated further. Staff members, emboldened by the public revelation of Kimmel's behavior, began speaking out about a toxic workplace culture that had existed for years. HR complaints multiplied, forcing the network to launch an internal investigation. "It's like the dam finally broke," explained one crew member. "For years, everyone just accepted that this was how it was, that you had to put up with the tantrums and the disrespect if you wanted to work on a high-profile show. Now, people are realizing that it doesn't have to be that way, that no one should have to endure abuse just to do their job." The network, increasingly concerned about both the public relations disaster and potential legal liability, began quietly exploring options for the show's future. Discussions about possible replacement hosts were initiated, though kept strictly confidential. For Bruce, the incident ultimately proved beneficial to his already stellar reputation. Public support for his stance against perceived bullying remained overwhelmingly positive. Several talk show hosts, sensing an opportunity, extended invitations for him to appear on their programs to promote his film properly. Bruce eventually accepted an invitation from a rival network, where he was treated with notable respect and given the space to discuss his project without invasive personal questions. The interview was widely praised for its substance and professionalism, providing a stark contrast to his experience with Kimmel. The incident sparked a broader conversation within the entertainment industry about the power dynamics at play in celebrity interviews and the often exploitative nature of talk shows that prioritize viral moments over substantive discussion. Several prominent hosts announced changes to their own formats, promising greater collaboration with guests regarding interview topics and boundaries. Industry veterans noted that what made this case particularly significant was Bruce's stature. "When someone of Bruce Willis's caliber stands up and says enough, people listen," explained one longtime publicist. He had the power to walk away without fear for his career. Unfortunately, many less established actors don't have that luxury, which is why abusive behavior has been tolerated for so long. As the weeks passed, the incident remained a cautionary tale within Hollywood circles. Kimmel's reputation had suffered what many considered irreparable damage, while Bruce emerged as something of a hero for standing his ground against perceived mistreatment. The full extent of the professional consequences for Kimmel continues to unfold, with industry analysts closely watching the network's next moves. Whatever happens, one thing is certain: the entertainment landscape has been indelibly altered by those tense moments on stage, when one of Hollywood's most respected actors refused to be bullied, even by one of television's most powerful personalities. What do you think about this confrontation between Bruce Willis and Jimmy Kimmel? Was Bruce right to stand his ground, or should he have played along with Kimmel's aggressive questioning? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below.
Thank you for watching our channel Modern Stories. If you liked our video, you should subscribe for more amazing videos like this. Have a healthy and happy day. See you in the next one.